How can you have a discussion about a topic where the people directly affected cannot speak?
It's not fair that women in another country so close to us have all these rights and we don't.
Where is the punishment for the man?
Yeah.
Why is the woman the only one that is punished? So the woman gets pregnant, the woman is expected to carry the pregnancy to term even if she doesn't want a baby. Where is the man in all of this?
You know, if everyone's afraid to say something because someone might disagree, and people will disagree inevitably, if you prevent and avoid all of those discussions and conversations, then you don't move forward, you know, you suppress a lot.
But isn't most of the time being neutral taking the side of the oppressor?
Exactly.
So
Right?
if you have a heart in what you're doing, like how can you even be neutral? Like your body wouldn't let you to be neutral because that's why you're doing it in the first place.
Welcome to the She Word, conversations women rarely have but really should. I'm Sasha, your host for the Young Women's Edition, and this episode is especially close to my heart. We all share a common thread here on this table, and that's activism. I believe that when you are born with that activist spirit, it's hard to ignore it, but it can also be exhausting, especially when you're placing yourself in the public eye and opening yourself up to negativity. It takes a certain level of courage, and sometimes you burn out. But it's necessary. And while many people shy away from activism, young women using their voices has been a catalyst for change in many situations. And I am one firm believer that we have the duty to use our platforms responsibly and to speak about the matters that need our attention. But how do we find the courage to speak up in the first place? What keeps us going? What burns us out? And how do we make sure our voices are not just loud, but also heard, respected, and sustained? Joining me for this episode are three incredible women whose lives have been shaped by activism in the same way that they've contributed to politics, journalism, the environment, and women's rights. First up, we have Belle de Jong, a journalist and environment editor at the European Correspondent. She led Malta's My Voice, My Choice abortion rights campaign, also creates content for early education and other NGOs. Her activism focuses on social and environmental justice, especially reproductive rights, the climate crisis, mental health, and Palestine. Secondly, we have Rachelle Bezzina. She is a writer, multidisciplinary artist, activist, and co-founder of Young Progressive Beings, a youth-led movement for reproductive rights. She uses art and language as tools for resistance, care, and collective empowerment. And lastly, Francesca Zammit, a multidisciplinary artist as well, working in dance, film, poetry, performance, and community-based interventions. Her practice explores the relationship between art, activism, and social change through grassroots interactions and public protest performances, and she is also the co-founder of Young Progressive Beings. So, ladies, thank you all for being here today. I'm super excited for this conversation because it's one that I have been meaning to hold for a long time. So now that I've introduced you, you can take a moment to introduce yourselves, maybe even reflecting back to why you are an activist, why you are here on this table. And yeah, Belle, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Belle. You all know me, so I don't need to introduce myself. I think I started activism. I've been thinking about this since you asked. I once joined a protest in Melbourne when I was on my exchange there, and it was for the environment and the climate crisis to basically declare a climate emergency. And what really took my attention or my energy was the amount of people coming together for one cause. And you have so much in common with so many people you don't know. There's thousands of people in the streets. And I was really overwhelmed by that feeling. I only knew it from festivals, for example. And I was like, wow, this is actually something, because it's not about your own joy, but actually about the cause, you know? And then I think in Malta, the first time I accidentally kind of did something public was when someone had asked me to write about my experience in Mount Carmel. And that really blew up, and a lot of people read it, and a lot of journalists reached out, and even the government promised a new hospital, which obviously never happened. But I think that's when it started. And since then, I've been doing a lot about it, women's rights, reproductive rights. The environment kept coming back through my activism always. Social justice. Now there's Palestine, which I've been quite vocal about. So yeah, that's it.
Nice. Francesca?
I think I've also been thinking about it since you mentioned it. And although the first political kind of activist event I attended was in 2019, I feel like I've always been a bit of an activist, or like I've had the activist spirit of like, being that student that always speaks out or like participates in everything and really wants to like make sure that everything is fair. And so I've always been like that. I've always been very vocal. And then obviously there was the EU summit in 2019, which is why YPB was founded, because we attended we staged a bit of an intervention outside of Castile with a banner that said, "Welcome to Malta, where women are incubators." And I attended it was a bit like, not an accident, but like I just wanted to have coffee with my friend and she was going and I was like, sure, I'll come and hold the banner with you, like, fine. And we got so much backlash that I felt that I had to be involved. Like I felt really drawn into this fight. I thought, oh wow, like activists have to go through this. Like, yeah, I'm gonna fight. And that's how it started. And then we started YPB.
Yes. For me, it goes a bit more back. I got introduced to activism through my poetry because I wrote from a very young age, but it was that journaling, reflective poetry until there was a planning application for a tourist development on Munshar, St. Paul's Bay, and I wrote this long poetry of objection, and I used to think like, okay, I'm doing poetry. I used to hang out with some guys and women that were not really into poetry. So I was like, how am I gonna pass my message a bit further and be able to communicate to them through my message? So I started creating hip hop, and I went to this open mic organized by Enetzi Ahmed at Maori at that time, and I did this song at this open mic, and Alex Caruana from Graffiti approached me, and he was like, this fresh energy, I really like your vibe, come join us, like, are you interested? And my first direct action was the one where we went and opened Manuel Island, but at the time it's 10 years ago, I think. I was like, yeah, well, we can make like an adventure out of it. Of course, I'll come, without understanding the implications. So I was brought in by community and for the love of hanging out with people, going on an adventure. And then when I grew into it, I continued attending meetings. I was like, yes, environmental rights are important, but without human rights, I can't see environmental rights. And then when digging deep into workers' rights, because my father used to work at the shipyard at Tarzna, so I really wanted to get into understanding the implications of workers' rights. But then I was like, okay, I am a woman in this environment, and women face a lot of backlash in the workplace. So that is when that was my spiral into women's rights. And then again, my body, it was coming into womanhood.
So it was all like one thing, like leading to another.
Exactly, which led me to Young Progressive Beings.
So I feel that there's so much to unpack, because from what I know about all of us, our activism has touched upon so many different things. But before we go into that, I want to just touch upon these statistics. So only 48% of young people ages 15 to 30 in Malta participated in voluntary, cultural, political, or NGO activities in the past year, placing them among the lowest in the EU. Globally, 17% of girls and young women activists ages 15 to 24 have feared for their physical safety, 9% received threats of violence, and 15% faced online abuse, which is something that I think we can all relate on. And the last one is activist burnout is a significant issue. Studies show that 61% of activists experience serious mental health challenges due to stress, emotional labor, or chronic exposure to injustice. So, taking it back to the beginning, what was that first moment where you called yourself an activist?
Only very recently. I actually don't think I called myself an activist, also because it was very easy to hide it under journalism. It's like I write about things I care about. Of course, you have this kind of sense of neutrality, like you can't like advocate through journalism, but by covering the topics that I care about and like shining a certain light on certain topics, that is in itself a form of activism. I was quite surprised that I was nominated for the Free Hour Awards as like for the political activist category, because I actually didn't consider myself like an activist, let alone a political activist. You know, like I just talk about things that affect people. But that
That's what it is.
But that I think was when I was like, okay, maybe I can just embrace this, you know? I think hesitated a lot calling myself an activist and even joining movements and communities, because as a journalist, especially when you go to like journalism school, you're always told that you're meant to be like, you're striving to be objective, you know, you're striving to show all sides of the issues, etc.
Yes.
And there is a lot of opinion within the media community on people doing activism next to journalism. At this point, I've embraced it.
And that is the wise thing to do. When I was a journalist, my editor would always tell me, you're not an activist anymore. Now you're a journalist. And I used to find that very hard to accept, because it's like, how can I separate the two? Being an activist is not something I chose to be. It's something that came from within.
But isn't most of the time being neutral taking the side of the oppressor?
Exactly.
So
Right?
if you have a heart in what you're doing, like how can you even be neutral? Like your body wouldn't let you to be neutral, because that's why
Exactly.
you're doing it in the first place.
Exactly. But I mean, that's the loophole, right? By advocating for the causes that you care about, you are creating awareness, and that is within itself a form of, you know, sneaky activism blended into journalism.
There's a similar thing in the arts, no? Because if you're an artist, you're reflecting on society and you're reflecting on life. So it's going to be, I mean, everything is political. So the art that you're going to make is going to have some kind of footing in politics, and therefore almost every artist is an activist, no, in that sense, because everyone's talking about their own experiences or whatever interests them.
And especially since artists also tend to respond to whatever is happening in the collective as well. That there are a lot of parallels between artists and activists without them actually identifying as the two.
I mean, artists are like the mirrors of society. They reflect.
Mirrors, but also creating the future of society, because if I have a vision as an artist and I am sharing it through my art, there is more meaning making than just interpreting my current context.
But that's also political, no? That you're creating that world.
Of course, that's why for me it's even political to even bothering knowing what's happening around you, questioning it, and taking your time to do something about it. So whether it's this is also about the role of activism for me. It was like put upon me when I was in this agency as artivisti thing, and I was like, okay, I'm doing my art. We're combining it with activism, but it's all I know what to do. Like it's all I want to do, and it's what I'm doing. And if we're calling it that way, sure. Like. Which was beautiful, which then led me to understanding more methodologies of how to get the message across, how to do it more effectively, which led me to my role also as a curator to help other artists developing their idea, executing it, and make meaning out of what they want to do. Yeah, that was something beautiful for me to experience.
What was it like? So you two are two of the founding members of Young Progressive Beings. There were many other founding members. What was it like? So can you walk us through it? Like, when did it happen? I mean, I kind of referred to you as veterans before when we still hadn't started filming, just because I've always associated you two with especially the cause of reproductive rights on the Maltese Islands. But what was it like to found one of the main organizations?
There was a vacuum. There was an empty space. There was no youth organization really focusing on reproductive rights. I mean, other activist organizations were tackling it, but there was no one specifically talking about it. And I mean, we were just a group of friends
Exactly. I remember us in
in the kitchen.
Were you?
in the kitchen.
How old were you?
24?
6 years
I was
ago.
24.
6 years ago.
No, I was 23. Okay, yeah, it was a while ago.
So I was 24.
Mhm.
Exactly. And we were in the kitchen and
You were younger than me. You're 22. You were 22 and I was 24.
exactly.
23.
I did +1 instead of subtract 1. We were in a kitchen and we were thinking, okay, we need to do this. How are we gonna organize ourselves?
And what are we going to call ourselves? It was like a big
And the logo. I remember. Yeah, that's how it started off.
I think we were just a group of people who were tired and we wanted to do something. And a lot of us had been at the EU Summit stand and we faced so much like hate speech that we were like, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to get organized.
Exactly.
So we're going to start an organization.
And see who's best at what, channel our resources in a good way to make the best out of it. And
a lot of amazing things came out of it. I mean,
yes.
because also new members joined. So, I mean, I have friendships that I would never have made otherwise. And I could only make them through like this activist group. It was amazing. And the experience that I got, I mean, I was 23. At the time, I didn't think I was young, 23. And now I think I was really young. But I learned so many things from being an activist, like from having an organization, how to deal with people, how to speak in public. Amazing things that like have sustained my career. I have become a better person, a better friend, a better like artist because I was an activist and because of this organization.
Yes.
I mean, we didn't know each other before. I mean, we didn't know each other well before.
No.
So like, yeah, amazing friendship.
True. Yes.
Like 6 years of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this turning point. You saw this empty space, and I mean, in Malta, we're all quite aware of the state of our reproductive rights. It's pretty embarrassing when you look at it from an EU level. So this cause, you felt strongly about it, and it pushed you to do something about it.
I had never thought about it in detail before. So before the stand, I had never thought so much about am I pro-life or am I pro-choice? Like it wasn't, because abortion was just not discussed, right? Like it wasn't discussed at school. It was like the word that you don't mention. Then when I received the backlash, I thought, well, why are people saying all these like really inaccurate, but even, I mean, I was called a foreigner. I was called
The worst of points.
yeah. But, and also like, why would it matter? And also like, I'm not, like, why would you say that even? It's not even an insult. That I am underage, that I'm unfuckable and therefore do not need to worry about abortion, that I'm a prostitute and that's why I want abortion. I was
You're being a propaganda machine.
yeah, or like a propaganda machine for Europe, for this European agenda. I was called so many things that are not true.
The baby murderer always gets me.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't even get to me anymore. Sure, you want to call me that, sure. But I was called so many things that I thought, oh, wow, like we really need to fight. There's a lot of lack of information and there's a lot of lack of education around this topic. So this is a need. So now I've identified this need, now I need to address it. So we've done a lot of like awareness raising campaigns, education campaigns. I mean, I've learned a lot because I didn't know so much about the topic before. And it's always a bit like the privilege of not knowing, you know, like I never needed an abortion, so I didn't need to know how to get one. And that's such a privilege.
I really like how you said like how there was a need both for YPB and just now, because I think that's kind of how I found the causes to speak about and to work for. And even you before I mentioned something where I was like, a lot of it is actually observing. Like the first step is actually looking around and seeing, okay, what are things that don't necessarily need to be the way that they are, like questioning stuff, what you do in journalism, no? Like you always ask why are things the way that they are? And then you realize that they don't need to be the way that they are. And that's, I think, where you start finding like, okay, this is what I care about. This is what matters. This is what doesn't sit well with me. I need to do something about it.
Yes, and why are certain people infringing on my rights? And the way that people feel that it's
The audacity.
But not only the audacity. For example, this is I was a practicing Catholic until very recently, and I was okay with being a Catholic for choice and all of these deliberate decisions that I took. But then at a certain stage, I was like, whoa. Like, if you feel that you have if you feel that what you're saying is okay just because you are saying it without evaluating the real life implications and the consequences that your words are making, like are bringing towards women in this society, then I'm really sorry. We cannot, like, we need to coexist, but there's a bit of a problem. Let's revisit a bit what gives you this confidence or the audacity to behave in this way in society. So that was a bit of a thing for me.
Take care and enjoy good health. Browns, empowering wellness by providing convenient and innovative health services.
Feel the warmth of connection with the here and now with Mallorca Spa experiences and vouchers. Discover more at mallorca.com.
Something about the way you bounce makes me want to keep you around my mind. My mind. Something about the way you sound shakes me up and makes me get down on my.
I think as females and as activists, a big part of it is reclaiming the power back, right? Because women have been oppressed throughout most of history, and it's safe to say that women are still oppressed.
Women are still oppressed.
Because
and there are different levels, of course.
Exactly.
There's intersection in feminism, but women are still oppressed.
Depending from the privilege.
And because I think maybe there's like, sometimes we forget that also men are oppressed under patriarchy. Patriarchy oppresses women, definitely, but it also oppresses men. So dismantling that system is in the interest of all of us. We would live a much better, much happier life without it. But just to build on like what you were saying, I really took the reproductive rights case or like this challenge as a socioeconomic struggle, because like we mentioned it before, like if you can afford to go abroad, you're fine. If you can actually take time off and actually go, you're fine. If you have a disability that you cannot go, you cannot leave the country, you don't have a passport, you don't have the money, then you're a criminal because you have to do it illegally.
Yes, but is it really fine? Because
it's not
women are
ideal.
silenced. It's not really fine, because why shouldn't we be able to speak about our experiences?
And
yes,
why do you need to leave the country? That's also
fine
bad.
in the eyes of the law. Of course, you're not criminalized, but to be silenced and not be able to talk about your experience. And in Malta, there's this issue of omerta as well. So you're not only silenced because you're criminalized, you're silenced because you're judged because of patriarchy and all the other inherent systems which are oppressive in nature. So, yes.
I mean, it has become an issue of privilege, right? That if you have a certain amount of money and if you have a certain amount of free time, then you can go and get the procedure, which is what irks me a lot about the argument that a lot of people make, that if you need an abortion, don't do it in Malta, go abroad. People don't realize that in order to be able to go abroad in such short notice, the amount of money, you need thousands to pull it off, basically.
You need to be brave, guys. I mean, you need to go get a medical
procedure abroad, in another country.
What you were saying, you need a valid passport, you need to not be underage, you need to understand
the language, for example. If you go in a different country.
Exactly.
I've spoken with girls who are not 18
Yeah.
and they can't tell their parents. They don't even have an option to go abroad. Like you can't travel by yourself. It's impossible. So what do? You know, it's...
But even if you have children, and and we know that a lot of abortions happen with women who already have children. If you have children that you need to take care of, if you have elderly people that are, or anyone that's relying on you, you cannot leave for a week to go get a procedure abroad and come back. I mean, this system is not serving us. And we need to change it, basically, is what we're saying. No, this is what we are this is why we are activists, because this system is not serving us.
Working.
And it's also heartbreaking when you look at it from a perspective of EU member states and what other EU member states have access to and what Maltese women living in Malta have access to. I mean, this is something that I've repeated consistently. Why should Maltese women have to be dealing with this with less rights when you look at other EU member states? And in the EU, when you're in Brussels, the conversation of abortion is non-existent. People are not talking about abortion anymore. It is a right.
Because it's so
The
normalized.
World Health Organization considers it as essential healthcare. People are not out there debating it anymore. It's only here in Malta that we seem to be stuck in this loop of something happening. And then a politician saying, okay, we need to sit down and have discussions. What discussion is there to have? It is not your choice to make. It is the choice of the woman in that situation to make that choice.
Also, you're in power. You can actually change the system. Just do that.
Exactly.
And that shows the lack of trust in women. But for me, what's most dangerous is the lack of post-abortion care in Malta, which made the news recently because of the court case.
So being
which is very
honest
dangerous.
with your doctor can land you in prison.
Yeah.
That's
And
insanity.
this is not the first case of this happening.
Yeah.
So I kind of can't understand why this one made more of a headline than the others, but there are women who have to go and sign bail books.
It's because of our activism.
Yeah.
We're talking about it. Yeah, that's what I
Exactly.
wanted to say earlier. Like, we don't speak about these in Brussels or in the Netherlands or whatever because there is abortion and it's considered healthcare by everyone. We're in Malta only just starting to have the conversation. Like, we've had that conversation in those countries, but like decades ago.
Yes, literally.
And here it's like, we haven't even begun discussing the fact that abortion might be healthcare, and maybe we shouldn't include it as healthcare, and maybe it shouldn't be criminal. So yeah, it's we're just decades behind.
Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get there. I mean, it's a
That's
bit
why
like
we're doing this.
it's a bit. It's not fair that women in another country so close to us have all these rights and we don't. Definitely, but also this is our fight. Like, we as Maltese women living in Malta need to fight for this right.
It's true, but of course, we are fighting for this right. For example, for me, I had to do a lot of unlearning to be able to fight this fight because the mentality that I was brought up with, and maybe speaking with other people that have not worked to understand the argument, I feel that I had to go through so much unlearning to get over what I have been taught about the subject. That yes, of course, it is our fight. We are fighting it, and this is why we do a lot of grassroots work because I can't expect people to read an article and understand the nuances of the argument because there's so much cultural layers, like
baggage.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that maybe being brought up in the Maltese Islands, it's a bit more complex, but that still shouldn't stop from acknowledging that abortion is healthcare. And see, it must come with a very good educational campaign to understand why abortion is healthcare.
That's why we need to have the conversations in the first
Exactly.
place. Like the actual stories of women who do need abortions and the actual conversations about what even is it. Like the hate we get for speaking about abortion is founded in so much misinformation. Like baby murderers. What baby? What murder? Like that's not even scientifically accurate, So there's so much as that unlearning that needs to be done.
Why even your mind is going there? Like instead of thinking that I may need help and how to get access to abortion, why is it even the first thing that comes to your mind is
Judge the woman.
to judge? Like
The moments where I've gotten this baby murderers comment quite a few times throughout the last few months. And every time I read it, I'm like, there's so many things that are wrong with it because if an abortion is happening the first trimester, it is not even considered a baby, it is considered a fetus, and there are differing aspects between a fetus and a baby. Murderers also, not that it matters, but I myself have never even gotten an abortion. How am I a baby murderer for speaking
about other women's rights,
Exactly.
like other people's decisions?
like
No.
it's so twisted?
But I think these are tactics to confuse us about what we're talking about. I am not going to argue with people who call me baby murderer. You want to call me that? I know what I am. I know who I am. Fine, suit yourself. Get a hobby maybe, but suit yourself. But what I fight for is the fact that my decisions are not, or like my life is not considered important enough for these people. Like the life of a woman, the decisions of a woman, the autonomy of a woman is not considered. How is that possible? How can you be arguing about this? Like, how can we be disagreeing that if I don't want to be pregnant, how can you force me to be pregnant? I just can't understand it. Like, I can't understand that topic. I mean, whoever wants to call me whatever, they can call me whatever. But how can I say, Belle, you should really like wear your hair differently because I don't like it this way? Who cares? Like, it's not your body. Like, no. Keep it to yourself. You cannot agree, and that's fine. You cannot agree, never get an abortion, fine, completely fine. I don't agree with a lot of religions, but of course you have a right to practice it, and I will fight for your right to practice your religion. I don't agree with you, but fine, do it. It makes you happy, do it.
Yeah.
What's the argument for keeping
But this is exactly why I feel that there shouldn't even be a discussion about it, because what are we discussing? The right of a woman to make a decision about her own body. Why is that up for male politicians sitting in parliament in their suits to discuss? This is what I get, where I get stuck, because we're always hearing these national calls for debate. We need to debate. We need to discuss. What is there to discuss?
I mean, I need to educate too. You need to like inform people that this is not what they think it is.
Instead of disturbing the status quo, you try to make it more palatable for the people to engage. But then really, who will engage? Would it be the people who need this right the most? Exactly. Because these type of women are already silenced. So
so many,
and they can't even by law open up, because if you need to lie to your doctor, how am I even gonna participate in a public consultation about my experience? Like,
how can you have a discussion about a topic where the people directly affected cannot speak?
Yeah.
They cannot speak by law about the issue that they have been through or might need to deal with.
Censorship.
So it is censorship.
It is censorship.
And not only legally, it's also on a very social level, obviously,
Yes.
which is, I think, what we mostly
and
deal
it's
with.
also a small island.
Gosh.
It's a small. We are in a small island, so it's even more than that. I mean, it's very rare that you can be anonymous here.
Yes.
Yes, but you can have the courage to face the backlash, to face the judgment, but to go to prison because I took a decision of what was best for me at that time. Like,
It's outrageous.
why would I even go through that?
Yeah, I definitely would not like advocate to any woman to come out and like talk about their abortion. But what I think is funny is that when you're a safe person, so many people open up and tell you that they've had abortions. That literally, if people knew how many people have aborted, like, and this was something that I was discussing with. I had this conversation with a group of elderly, and this is something that I pointed out, that when you are saying some really like poisonous things, you are not understanding that you're not empathetic to the fact that in your group there are women who have had abortions, there are people who have had abortions. And I really feel safe saying that in Malta there is always a woman who has had an abortion in the conversation that you're having.
Statistically, it's 500 a year,
Yes.
which is not lower than
decades.
EU statistics.
Yeah, because banning it doesn't make it.
Then countries with like safe, free, legal abortion.
Yeah, banning it.
Fewer abortions because as that people are informed and contraceptives work.
But I think if people knew, if like there was like a way of like us knowing who we would be like much more calm about this topic.
And in fact, I mean, I've been meaning to turn to you at some point during this segment, that we actually have someone on the table who went on national television to talk about her abortion. I mean, that takes
What possessed you?
the courage that takes. And I remember it happening.
I was
What was that
21,
like?
I think.
21.
I don't think I fully understood the implications. I had written about it. That's why they asked me to speak about it on TV in this topic TV show. And I had written about it for Love in Malta because Love in was one of the very few outlets, if not the only, that actually let people even cover the topic of abortion altogether. So it was one of my first articles there. And I wrote that I had an abortion for medical reasons and it's not in your name. Like, that was my main point. I was like, I don't need you to agree with it. But there was this whole Facebook group being like, abortion not in my name. And it's like, okay, I'm not doing it in your name. Like, what's your point? It was never in your name. And so then they had reached out and they had done like a pre-interview, which was very respectful. And I was like, okay, like I'm happy to talk about this, you know, if it's in a respectful manner. Then they plastered my face with pretty ridiculous makeup. Even now I feel uncomfortable. So let alone when they had put like a whole clown face on me. And then they put me in front of this very like disrespectful interviewer who really spoke to me as the only woman in Malta to have ever had an abortion and to represent the entire pro-choice community.
Yeah.
When at that point, I didn't even do the activism. I just had an abortion. I was like, we need to talk about this, you know? And I'm a foreigner. I went abroad. This gives me, in a way, a lot of
You are not
leeway.
the perfect victim for it.
I'm not a perfect victim, but at the same time, I don't have family here that will disown me for speaking about it.
As these women wouldn't be able to.
That's why. And that's, I think, why I felt like I kind of wanted to, because I knew how difficult it would be for my friends. Like, my friends were like, even if I had an abortion, I couldn't say it because my mom would never speak to me again, you know? I don't have these things holding me back here. I already wrote about it. I was happy to. And then I got these very hostile questions about why I even got the first question was, of course, how I got pregnant, which I didn't think we were going to talk about, but sure.
As if consent to sex is consent to
pregnancy or like raising a child for 30 years anyway. And he was asking me, like, up until when do I think it should be legal? I was like, I have no idea what we're talking about. I had mine at 6 weeks. I don't know what, like, even now I know, you know, like now I know where the limit is in most countries and what makes sense. I was just there like, man, I'm talking about my story, not about the whole policy debate. I have no idea. I'm 21. And I think out of shock to all of these questions, he got quite offensive. He was like, would you do it again? Like, why didn't you just like have more contraception or whatever? I think out of shock, I stayed very calm. And I just responded to his questions in a very like sensible way. I was like, I mean, I'm not here to have like a philosophical debate. He asked a lot of questions about what if, you know, what if you found out later that, and I'm like, what do you mean, what if? Like, this is what happened, you know? And afterwards, I was just in shock. I was like, what just happened? You know, I thought I was going to have like a nice conversation and I really didn't. And what I think I took away from that is that when I went online expecting so much backlash, because that I had really prepared for, I was like, okay, this is going to be hell. You know, people are not going to enjoy this. Of course, there were hate comments and like people weren't happy about it. But more people were actually calling out the interviewer being like, man, even if you disagree, like you can't interview someone like that in such a hostile manner. I was like, wow, so there actually is room for understanding here, even if they disagree. You know, they would literally write, like, I don't think she should have had an abortion, but that interview wasn't very nice. Like, okay, that is a conversation we can have, you know, like, even if we disagree, we can come to terms and, like, understand that we can treat each other like human beings instead of shouting at each other on TV. So in the end, I think it was an interesting experience.
I really like what you said, that as if consent to sex is consent to pregnancy, because I've never heard it like placed in that way, and it's so spot on.
Exactly, because
I mean, even for men, right? Sorry to interrupt, but even for men, like, you know how many guys want to have sex without a condom? This is another educational issue in Malta. Like, how many men are okay having sex without a condom? You have to educate them, like, that's not good, you know? It's like, okay, you want to have sex without a condom. Do you want a baby with me? Do you want me to get pregnant and have a child? Or do you want me to have an abortion? The answer to both of these questions is no. So why is this a thing? Why are there so many men who want to have sex without a condom, without them understanding?
Because they expect
can walk away.
Yes, and they expect women to be uncomfortable with other methods of contraception. That's an entitlement issue then. But for
women, it's considered like consent to sex is consent to pregnancy. For men, consent to sex is never consent to having a baby. Like, that's not even in their, you know, Men are never told like, oh, you shouldn't have had sex if you don't want a child.
What she said though, that men can walk away, and I've actually saw with the recent situation we had in Malta, I saw a lot of comments online of people saying that where is the punishment for the man?
Yeah.
Why is the woman the only one that is punished for? So the woman gets pregnant, the woman is expected to carry the pregnancy to term even if she doesn't want a baby. Where is the man in all of this? Because it's a two person thing, it takes two to tango, right? you need the man, you need his sperm to actually get an egg fertilized.
Yeah.
So why is it all placed on women?
This is an unfair situation, right? It's not, men and women are not equal. They're just not. I mean, I think it would be utopic we try to strive for equal opportunity, but we are not equal. Women get pregnant, men do not. I mean, I'm simplifying a lot because obviously there are others, exceptions. So this is why abortion is such a contested debate, because it's only something that affects one part of the population, and the other part of the population are not affected because they can always walk away. They just denounce it. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to do anything physically. They don't need to risk their lives. They don't need to go off medication. They don't need to like wear it out in public. So yeah, that's why
They need to stop working.
Yeah.
Undergo the biggest hormonal changes in their bodies. And if men could get pregnant, we would be in such a different situation.
You could get an abortion at the mini market.
Yes.
Like
We're not here having this conversation.
exactly.
Literally. And so we've said so much, like there's so much to unpack, but I think the answer will be yes. But was there any situation where you felt discouraged to speak out just because of Malta's local context?
Can I ask something? Because this is something I've been thinking about a lot. But is this abortion specifically, is it something that you want to be advocating for?
I've never thought about that.
No, not particularly. I would rather not.
Like I don't want to be doing this.
No.
I was
not
put
at
on
all.
TV and I was like, ooh, same as you said, like this invites a lot of like backlash for some reason. Maybe it's important. That's the same way I felt even about Daphne, to be honest. When I realized that you can get blown up for being a journalist, I realized she must have been onto something really, really important there,
And she was.
you know? And she was. So then when you see that you've like struck a nerve, it's like, okay, this must be important. Do I want to be talking about abortion? Not at all. Not at all. Like this is not something I was born and I was like, I need to be speaking about abortion
your life
every day of my life.
purpose.
Like, not at all. I would rather have never even mentioned the word. But here we are, you know.
But remember, the last time I was in the European Parliament, I took part in a debate. And at some point I said that talking about certain things is inevitably going to open you up to online hate. But I think some people can take it, some people can't. And if you find yourself in the, not that I consider myself someone who can take it, because when I find myself targeted, my mental health spirals and I have that week or 2 weeks of saying, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired of putting my own identity on the line to open myself up to this backlash. But then what I said during this debate at some point was, but someone has to do it, right?
Yes, Sash, and it's someone has to do it. And for me, that and is okay, because I know that from time to time, women will pop up on my messenger, on my Instagram and ask, I need help now. I needed help yesterday. What are the resources? And I'm like, here you go, girl. Let me know if you need anything else. Like, I'm not a doctor, but these are the official organizations that can assist you in any information you need. This is a pro-choice gynae. And that for me, like, throw at me all the hate you have in the bottom of your heart. Because the moment then I'll see that woman somewhere and we connect and she's like, you saved my life. And I'm like, girl, this should be public information. Like, I did the bare minimum and I'm really sorry. Like, our state is in the way it is. So yes, the hate, draining, but then these pearls, pop up, and my heart is, happy and gives me all the fuel and energy to keep going and be vocal about the things which are important, because they don't, they are not as visible as they should be. Because this is, yes, as we discussed earlier, a healthcare issue, and people should know how to have access to care and health resources. So yes.
So it is those moments then that make it all worth it. Because it's the same for me then. Like when you see people, oh, like, thank you for talking about this, like genuinely showing their appreciation. Then in that moment, I'm like, okay, it's worth it.
I mean, there's one side to it that is like, I genuinely believe in what I'm doing. And I think even if no one else cared, I think I would still feel this way. So there's like a side of activism. There's activism that I do, knowing that it's not going to change anything, knowing it's not going to matter, but I can't let the world we're living in change me. So I have to show up because that's who I am, and that's what sustains me. So I'm a bit selfish in that way, that I do it for myself. And then I love being a safe person. I mean, those kind of conversations where someone feels safe opening up to you, that's what I want to be. And yeah, that really fills me with like joy of being able to not judge. Like, there's so many people who are like, I'm going to tell you because you don't judge me. Why is it such a...
But is it really selfish? Because for me, this is collective care. Yeah. You're showing up for other people and for yourself and having a conversation and be present. Wow, for me, it's collective care. It's not selfish at all to be present and to show up. Of course, that's gonna enrich you because you're in your community and you found your people that...
And to have the ability to do that as well, because... Most people don't have the ability to even be empathetic towards other people and what they're going.
But it's a privilege as well. I mean, I don't go through this like self-censorship because I don't have a job that is going to be on the line if I speak out. I mean,
we also made the decisions to not have a job.
Yeah, I mean, I made the decision, of course.
Which I'm like, pay most of the time.
In fact, I've been wanting to touch upon this. Like, we already referred to a bit of the local context in Malta. So activism is sometimes kind of not looked at in the best way, I guess, because there are a lot of people who have, like, for example, if you have a government job and you want to speak out about something, you are potentially putting your job on the line.
I just feel alive. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I got that lifestyle, I'm fierce as hell. That blended top model, that husky fast throttle. Living it up, you know I don't eat. It said I just feel alive. 'Cause all I got is what I am and I'm on fire. And what you want is what I am, baby, that's fine. What all the kids said, I just feel alive.
With the Mano Island petition to save Mano Island from construction, like 400 luxury flats, I had people who work for ERA, for the Government Environment Agency, who did not sign the petition. They work for an environmental agency because they worked for government. You know, like that to me is such a like, it's so, it goes against everything, you know, like it goes against the point. Yes.
I'm not going to judge
very
anyone.
common.
People do whatever they deem safe. But I think there's so much censorship. Like, do not surrender your power until the last minute, you know, until you have to. Stop surrendering your power. Unless you're a certain scale with the government, they cannot do anything to you for like, I mean, if they do, it's illegal. And then you can like pursue it. I mean, I know it's difficult, and I'm not saying that everyone can or should do it, because everyone knows their own situation. But like, we need to break through this self-censorship and this fear.
And the route is to organize yourself, even in the workplace, to advocate for yourself and what you truly believe in. And if this issue you cannot talk about because there is a threat of censorship, it's yes, if you tackle it individually, but if you're the whole office, then what are they gonna do? Fire the whole office? That would be much more expensive than you speaking out about it and arriving to the point where you want to arrive. But sometimes we don't speak to each other about what's important for us, and we assume maybe that the other person sits on a different position.
And I really think sometimes we really assume wrongly. There are a lot of people in government who are like pro-choice, critical of the government. There are a lot of these people around, but they have been, we've really like created, I don't know if it's like a colonial, post-colonial thing, but we've really created the sense of like, we cannot.
Servitude.
We cannot say anything. We cannot disagree with the master. And I'm here to say, like, you can definitely disagree with the master.
The point of like a healthy democracy to disagree, you know. This is something actually in Malta in general. This is something where I really like see a difference between the Netherlands, where I grew up, and then Malta, where disagreement in the Netherlands is invited. Like, you want to be disagreeing even over the smallest things because it invites discussion. It means you consider each other's perspective and you have a more holistic view of what's happening. In Malta, disagreement is almost always taken as a personal attack, as something you don't want. Conflict, we avoid at all costs. That's how you stay stuck. You know, if everyone's afraid to say something because someone might disagree, and people will disagree inevitably, that's the point of like being human. If you prevent and avoid all of those discussions and conversations, then you don't move forward. You know, you suppress a lot, and even on a personal level, you start to notice like.
But there's definitely, we can agree like that there's this fear that silences a lot of people in Malta, and sometimes it might come across as, I mean, I question this a lot. Is it because people don't care, or is it because they feel powerless to bring about any kind of change? Is it maybe a bit of both for different people?
I think a lot of it is that, and I also choose to believe that, to be honest, but especially when you go out with petitions and stuff, a lot of the responses when people don't want to sign for something like Manoa Island, which almost everyone agrees that we don't want 400 flats there, you know. The people who don't sign are the ones who say, what's it gonna do? Why does it matter? And it's like, no, your personal signature, my personal signature is not going to change these flats, you know. But then we got 29,000 people to do that. And it's the same what you just said about in the office. Like, if you individually like do something against your employer, then you might lose your job. But if all 20 people in the office agree and they do the same thing, you can't fire the whole office. It's impossible.
But this is why activism can't be individualistic.
That's why you need to have the conversations.
Exactly.
And organize.
So how do you reach these people who say nothing will ever change anyway? Like, how do you reach them?
You start the conversation.
And experience, I mean, the best I ever feel in my life is when I'm walking to the protest with my besties. I am telling you, I feel fire, superwoman. I feel like we're usually walking from like the graffiti premises to like wherever the protest is starting, Parliament or Triton Fountain. It's like electrifying. In that moment, nothing wrong, nothing bad. Like, someone wants to like start insulting me, like, I'll fight them. I feel such adrenaline, I don't know, power in walking somewhere with others, like for the same cause. And this is what people feel in concerts, this is what people feel in churches. It's the power of community.
Yes.
Ceremonial in a way.
And there's like a certain, like, you know, like things that you do or like things that you wear. Like, I always wear my PB t-shirt.
Rituals that contribute to it.
And you write the placards before, and you can put your little thing, and then you give them out. It's really like, if people haven't been to protests, like, you should really try it. It's, I don't want to say it's like a party, because, you know, there's like
it feels that way though.
But it's really
a party with a point.
Like a party. Yeah. And you can really like, it's a bit this feeling of you don't know the person next to you, but because you're there for the same cause, you're like ready to go have a drink with them after.
Exactly, in solidarity with each other, and you know, you can start a conversation about most of the things, and you know that the premise that you left on is mutual, so you feel safe, and that brings so much joy to do it again.
Yes, I can totally resonate with this. I mean, most of the things I'm doing now, like I attribute so much of how my life developed, how my career developed to the trees protest at Central Link when I was 19. I always say the story with I mean, the memory of it. I remember that day being one of the most amazing days of my life. And it was because the way everything came together. I mean,
Because people showed up for something that you started.
yes, and it was unintentional. Like I was just looking for 50 people. I wasn't working with any activist group, but multiple activist groups extended their help. And this energy, this feeling that was created that day. I mean, one thing that I will never forget was when I saw like this woman who was in a wheelchair who came to the protest. So the whole thing was for people to tie themselves to the trees. And she placed herself next to the tree. And of course, since she was since she was using a wheelchair, she couldn't really tie herself to the tree. So she put her hand like this and with the tie, and then around the tree. And that was it's still an image that remained in my head forever.
Poetic in a way, because maybe the trees were gonna not be there like for accessible reason, but then the accessible issue shines through that. Yes, it's very beautiful.
So did you ever have a moment like that where you looked around you, like one specific one? You were like, wow, like I helped create this. I brought these people together.
In my day-to-day, I really experience it, especially in the music community. Right now, I'm working with 141 Records on several projects, and they are working together with Solidarietà to establish a union for artists. And people come and go to the studio, Funky Monkey Studio, and we have conversations. And if I have a tiny bit knowledge that I am happy to share about resources, I'm gonna do it. And that sharing of resources for me is really empowering in a way, because you see the other person saying, wow, I didn't even know these resources exist, but yeah, that's why we need to organize ourselves to share these resources. So on a day-to-day basis, I find it, I try to live this way of life and having these meaningful moments with other people to harness this friendship and community. But just I try to be that way because that's how I feel best when I'm navigating in this way. So if I'm not experiencing that, if I'm not expressing myself through my art or through community or through these friendships, then I am not feeling that. But I try to prioritize that electrifying feeling of oneness and sharing things with others, whether it's for a common goal or it mostly is. It results in a common goal. So for me, it's like a daily practice that I try to engage in, whether it's having dinner at your place, and sharing things. It's a communal moment that doesn't need to happen like in the middle of Valletta. We can create these communal moments between us, and by sharing the solidarity, the empathy, and understanding each other's struggles and figuring it out together. I find it very beautiful.
We can't not mention what becomes created on social media. And this is something that I have been meaning to touch upon. Activism in the digital age. I believe it has been quite transformative in that sense, social media, because it is a tool that is available to all of us and that can reach thousands, if not millions of people. But social media has made it very easy to click and scroll and move on from whatever we're seeing. So do you think that social media within itself has made activism more accessible or maybe more performative? And what has been your experience with using social media as a tool for any of the causes that you are fighting for?
I mean, I think because I've used it mostly for My Voice, My Choice, and even for Mano Island, we did we gained like 5,000 signatures, at least only through social media.
Yeah, that was incredible.
It was insane.
That was incredible.
So like I personally use it a lot for activistic goals, even with earthly education. Like we're always working with like organizations and petitions and whatever. I think social media itself, as like a creation by big tech, is not steered towards creating a better world. Like it's steered toward profit and making sure that people spend as much time on social media and waste as much of their attention on these ads so that people can profit off it. That doesn't mean that we can't use it to create a better world. And then I look around and I actually think we have so much more potential to be doing that, because I think a lot of activism does happen in person and a lot of it does rely on friendships and like in-person communities. But on social media, you can reach the people who are maybe not, for example, pro-choice or pro-Palestine, but they do care about Mano Island. And those are the people we happen to reach with like one reel that took a minute to create at most, you know? So I think there's a lot of potential. I think it's not inherently created for good, but it can be used for good.
I agree. I guess social media maybe makes it a bit more individualistic. Like when I decide to use my platform, given that I have a platform that I have been working for, and now there's quite a few thousands of followers on it. So I feel that it is my duty, my responsibility to use my platform for the things that I can talk about. But in that sense, then it's just you doing it. You're not really. This is why in recent months, my experience of activism, I really love like what you're sharing about it being like a community-driven thing. For me, it's really not that at all. It's a one-man show. Like it's like, okay, I have built my name. I started from this protest. From this protest, I gained attention from media houses who wanted to publish my opinion pieces. From that, I went into journalism, worked there for 2 years, continued to build my name, building my platform. So now the position that I'm in is like, okay, because of who I am, that gives weight to whatever I'm talking about. So for me, in that sense, it has become very individualistic, because it's like, okay, I'm gonna film, I've written what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna film this video, and I'm gonna hope that, I like to appeal to emotion. That is one tool that I feel is really, it can come in handy basically, because you appeal to people's emotions so that you can kind of get their attention.
I think it's
All
at the core of
storytelling
it.
appeals to people's emotions. It's like a
Exact.
best
It's
tool
at the
for
core of it.
storytelling. But I think in what you're saying, I hear a lot of like before we were talking about burnout, and for me, one of the things that makes activism worth it and protects me against burning out is relying on my colleagues. I mean, it's like at the beginning, I think we had gotten like some activist training when we started YPB, and the trainer said, activism is like being in a choir. When one person stops to breathe, the others continue. And I think sometimes I'm weary of like big spurts of energy. Like you can use all your energy to like firework. Okay, that's one method, but you're not gonna be able to sustain that. Or you can start a low flame. Starting a low flame, constant pressure, and that's how you can make a really good
This
soup.
is so good.
It's true.
This is the mistake I've been making. Because every time, like, okay, last week I had 2 videos perform really well, like thousands of views. But afterwards, one, it always places me in a position of like, okay, how am I going to top this now? Because we know how the Instagram
stresses me
algorithm
out,
works.
Malla.
One day this is going to perform that way, and then another, it's like you posted into a vacuum and got no response. Like, so yes, what you're saying makes so much sense.
One thing I only recently realized is that maybe, because obviously you run into burnout, I've been taking a semi-individualistic approach. Like I feel like I float in between. Like I struggle with community because of my background or whatever. But then I also crave it a lot, And recently I realized that some of the moments I enjoy the most in activism is when I take a step back because I just can't anymore. And I see other people stepping in. And it's even people who I would never have expected to say something or to go to a protest or to even post about the topic. And it's like, wow, like, I don't even know if that's me or the community or the cause, but some people are actually stepping up now that I'm not.
It's
That is
scaffolding.
incredible.
It's
Exact.
scaffolding. You prepared the first step so that someone else can make the next step.
Yeah.
And this is what I like. This is why I think activism is like, this is how I think activism is different than politics. Because I really feel like activism is really building the scaffolding for each other. And like I tend to think that politics is a bit more individualistic. You need to like create your brand and like stick with
Persona,
it.
Totally.
Yeah. And
I
there
mean,
is-
politics is a popularity contest, literally.
yeah, and like people need to trust you. I mean,
Mhm.
okay, there's like parties and things, but like people need to trust you. But with activism, it's just, I don't know, like such a big,
It's the collective.
yeah, and it's being understood, it's being seen. It's like, I don't know, I felt weird all my life, and then suddenly I'm like, wow, there are other women like me, you know, there are other angry women.
And
out
that's
there.
how the personal becomes political,
Yeah,
because you get
right.
together, you narrate your stories, and you realize you're not alone.
Yeah. But the amount of positive impact it has on your life, like I have learned so much about myself and why I take certain things or why I react in a certain way because of activism. Like I'm telling you, activism makes your life better.
It does.
It's like it teaches you what to not take from other people. I don't know, like I've become a better everything, a better friend, a better. So yeah, I recommend it. I don't know if I feel like I'm doing to like become an activist. Promotion.
Yeah, and also like I think something that we're taught from like a very young age. I remember being a teenager in school, and it's like you are told and made to believe that it's not cool to care about
Yes.
anything. You can't care about anything. Like if you show that you care about something
We're
or
so
someone,
over that.
it's lame, you know? And then at some point you realize like it is actually really cool to care.
It's so
like
cool
it
to
is
care.
actually really cool, and it like you give and you get back,
Yeah.
and you make friends, and you actually connect over something instead of something like the same bag. You connect over something you deeply care about. It brings you so much more. And I think that is something that we need to like especially teach like younger people. Like it's actually cool to care. Like if there's some weird obsession you have, give in to that, you know? Like you might get bullied for it now, but you're going to be so much cooler later if you have like, you know, these things that make you you. Yeah.
I mean, it's such a capitalist tactic, Emma, to make it uncool to care. Like, okay, how can we make people not complain about the oppressive situations we've created? We'll make it not cool to care.
To care.
Because they
It's
would
not, you have to be
need to fill
empathetic.
the void other way than
Yeah.
by consumption. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
So,
Breaking free of your chains.
I want to go back to us mentioning burnout because this is something that I wanted to dive into. So, and also going back to social media. So social media, it gives us a platform, but it also invites a lot of backlash. So how do you deal with that? And also how do you deal with the burnout? How do you protect your energy when you are essentially opening yourself up? Like if you, I don't know, speaking about it from a perspective of a video going viral, thousands of people have watched you speak. It's you have like opened yourself up to them. So how do you place those boundaries in place so that you can protect yourself?
For me, what made me go on social media and speak about things on social media in the first place was because I enjoyed having discussions, even with people outside of my friend group. You know, I was like, I'm actually really glad to hear other people's perspectives about things I think about or things I have opinions on. And it's cool that on social media, there are people, even like people on the other side of the world that I can have a discussion with about a topic where we have different thoughts or the same thoughts, which is even cooler, you know? And I think that's what I try to do on social media, which is inherently not built for that, for like in-depth, nuanced discussion. But that is the thing that kind of keeps me coming back to it, that I do have these conversations still. And when I'm in a situation where I realize that someone is not actually out to have a genuine discussion, I'm not going to have that. Like, I'm not going to pour my energy into something that I know is just someone shouting propaganda or like trying to personally insult me. Like, it doesn't bring me anything. It doesn't bring them anything.
or to outshine you. Like I feel like so many people try to show how much they know.
As
And it's
that. Like, okay,
Cool, you're smart.
that's cool.
Great.
You know,
Like,
go do something with it.
yeah. Get a hobby.
To know when not to engage because
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not everyone's worth your time. And I think a lot more comments are not worth our time than we think they are. Also, one thing that I always keep in mind, this has been like in me as a child even, I think, that if you get criticism from someone you don't aspire to be like, why on earth should you take it seriously? Like, I look at my life and I look at yours and you're the one criticizing me. I mean, fine. I want to be nothing like you. Like,
yeah, I live by this.
Yes. For me, to prevent burnout in a way is creating this maintenance routine for myself
Interesting.
that
Like
I
what?
prioritize, and that time is sacred. You can't come even here unless there's an emergency, right? I need my meditation, I've learned. I need to journal, like do political journaling to understand the news and have my own perspective on it. I need to move my body in a way or another, whether it's hiking, resistance training. I need to engage in meaningful conversations, and I need to feel aroused. Otherwise, I can't navigate life with heavy energy.
Resistance
me-
training is a pun intended. Sorry, I just saw it and I couldn't help myself.
Of course. 2 in 1.
Esatto.
But weight training, dedicating
yes,
time
yes,
for my body and to take care of myself and my mind.
I'm really interested about the political journaling actually, because I don't think I've ever heard about this.
Because when the news about the genocide of the Palestine was hitting tipo, the outlets, I felt into this depressive hole of unhelplessness. Like I had this paralysis of just 100 tabs in my mind of potential mobilization which are beyond my resources, and I just felt paralysis that I cannot do anything about it. So at that stage I was like, it's either I'm gonna rot in bed or try to understand all these heavy feelings. So I started political journaling, I call it, where if something on the news triggers me in a way, or I'm having nightmares about it in my sleep, then I know that I need to process it, and I process it through writing, and that helps me to understand my standing and if I need to do more research about it or not. And even when you're discussing or debating, knowing your stance and not be open to swaying around or having other people's thoughts becoming your own thoughts because you've developed your own perception about something, especially in local politics. So that for me was an important step of getting to know myself within the political dynamic of life. Yeah.
How interesting.
Periods are part of the game, but they don't have to throw you off your game. Try new Always Platinum for up to 100% leak protection, faster absorption, dry feel, and it's more cushiony, so you can focus on your game. It's a new period, always.
I'm going through several burnouts, so I guess when I figure it out, I'll
Let us know.
share it with you. Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that you guys have mentioned is really like, I've taken notes.
I've taken notes of what you
Yeah.
said though as well, because as someone who tends to do everything alone, the way you said it before, that the fact that you do it with your friends, that you
Yeah.
have that sense of community, and also what you said, it's like if someone is not feeling up to it, another person can step up.
But sometimes like really takes over, and for me the lesson was you don't use these tools when you're spiraling. You use these tools as a maintenance baseline. So
All the time.
you put
So
them in your
important.
schedule, and you owe up to yourself, because for at least for me that's how I function. I need these tools to function in a healthy and pleasant way.
I'm the
So-
same as you. Like this morning, I knew I was coming down to Malta and I had to film. I went down to the beach without my phone, swam, meditated on the rock, and that is and then journaled. And these are the little things, exactly as you placed it, maintenance to equip you to deal with reality. But one thing I want to jump on. So you mentioned Palestine. Now, Palestine, of course, it has been dominating the news for the last, I would say, almost
2.5
2
years.
years. And personally, so I always feel like I can make more of an impact when there are things that are happening on a local level. But when it is on an international level, and exactly how you described it, this feeling of helplessness, it's like we are witnessing a genocide happening from our phones. How do you respond to that as an activist? Because in these situations, okay, we have social media to raise awareness. We can attend demonstrations that are only going to impact the way our country handles it, but doesn't actually directly impact. So how do you handle it? How do you deal with it?
I think you need to surrender that you are not gonna fix the world. You might have pleasant influences on the world, but I don't think that anyone can take the sole responsibility for like fixing the world's problems. That's just not feasible. So like, don't set yourself up for failure. Don't put such a big weight
on your shoulder.
Yeah, that's of course you're not gonna manage to do that. Like when that's, I think somehow like what creates helplessness, because we see starving children and we cannot help, but we can educate ourselves so that these things don't happen.
But how we cannot help? Like for me, this massive power imbalance gets through. I can't live with it.
There are so many injustices in the world. Like,
I
are you gonna
know,
fight them all?
But for example, this is one of the reasons we're good friends. Like I talked to you about burnout. You remind me of this. Tangibly, we organized ourselves, went to the protest together, and then went to Manuel Island for a swim.
Yes,
that's true.
Protest. So for me, it's more to get myself out of that rut, surround myself with people to remind me these things.
I mean, I
Because
was surprised
otherwise-
by your answer, because I feel like you've been like saying this throughout this whole discussion that you can't do it alone, you need to do it together. Like that's the answer to that. Like, and it's extremely distressing even to see the response of our governments, even though there is so much public opposition to it, you know, like already like the majority of people is against this, against Europe supporting Israel, and yet they continue. But if there was no protest, nobody speaking up, then it would be obliterated. Like it would be so much worse, you know? And that's not something you can tangibly show, because you can't say like, okay, look, if we hadn't done this, that would have happened. But the resistance still means something. And even if it doesn't mean anything at all in concrete terms, it still brings this kind of collective together, where at least we came to show that we cared, you know?
And on an individual level, are you comfortable not doing anything? Because for me, that's like the big thing. I accept, I surrender that I do not have control of the universe. I surrender to that knowledge, but I cannot look at myself in the mirror if I am not like showing up for these things. I know it's not going to change anything, but I cannot not do it.
It becomes an integrity issue.
For me, I think so. I think it's I cannot let that this massiveness change me. Like I know that I'm a person who cares about these things, and I will fight for them.
There's this really beautiful anecdote of a Dutch-American activist, AJ, what's his name?
I forgot his name, but
AJ
like with the candle,
Hunter
no?
or something as that. And during the Vietnam War, every single day he came to the White House with a candle by himself. And at some point, the reporter came to him. He's like, you've been here for a year or whatever. Like, do you really think you're going to change the US government and their actions in Vietnam with your candle by yourself? And he said, but I'm not here to change the government. I'm here to not let the government change me.
I saw that, and that's what inspired this thought process.
And
so
I
this
think
guy
in
is
the
still,
end,
still inspiring us.
Exactly. Like even if none of what we do would matter, which we already know it does, we already see the impact. Like it has mattered, it will matter, it does change things. But even if none of that was true, at least there's that, you know, like at least we're not letting the world change us.
Also, I don't know, but if you're educated, you can make better decisions. So if you are educated about a genocide, if you are educated about the history of the world, if you are educated about how the media can use certain terminology to like wash over certain things, to manipulate, you can also fight locally then, because then you recognize these tools and you're able to call them for what they are. So it's never a waste to educate yourself and to like, if you feel something, if something moves you, that's beautiful. I don't think it should make you feel inadequate.
And something I had wanted to mention before, and this is something that actually like professors and academics have spoken about, is that you feel better doing something.
Yes.
Like even for yourself, like you feel better if you are actively doing something about something that you care about. Like sitting back and being passive, for me at least, makes me very depressed, you know? So at least when I turn that into action, even if it's just selfish, which I know it's not, then there's that, you know, like I feel
But even
better
this beach
speaking
day
up.
that you mentioned, I mean, I look back to it so fondly. Like we went to the protest together and then we went to the beach together. And that is
was
how
so
you
beautiful.
do joy activism.
Exactly.
That is how you bring joy into being an activist, because otherwise you cannot sustain anger, you cannot sustain sadness, you cannot sustain these, like, you need to feel these emotions and they come up, and like it's healthy to let them out.
And channel them in a good way.
And what you're doing, but you cannot sustain them forever. It's tiring. Is that what you want to devote your life to? Like, I don't want to be an angry person, you know, in my life. Like, I'm a very loving person, I'm very supportive, I'm very caring, and that is what I bring to the activist.
Yes, but softness takes a lot of work. Like for me, it took a lot of work to be able to reflect and speak about these matters in the way that I am speaking now. It was not inherent. I had to I had to learn what love means to be able to do all these things out of love and not out of
And especially
different emotions. So to be able
in
to
a
sustain
society that interprets softness as weakness and vulnerability as weakness.
But I feel like I also have this, or like I've experienced this thing, but maybe at the beginning when I started being an activist, I wanted to prove that I'm right, that my way of seeing the world is the right way, and I want to prove it to you. I'm going to out debate you, and I'm going to show you the facts. And actually, in the years that I've matured, I realized that's so not what I want to be doing. Like, maybe we'll have a conversation and you change my mind. Great. Like, my mind is flexible. I wish to like, I hope that this is the truth, that my mind is flexible enough to be able to change opinions, to be able to understand other people's way of seeing life. Like, I think we need to like dismantle these binaries. Pro-life, pro-choice, pro-this, pro-that. Like, it's so nuanced.
It is, but until you label something what it is, you cannot fully understand it and oppose it and build an argument around it. So if I don't define something, then how can I advocate for it? Yes, preferably we arrive to that stage where we live together peacefully and holistically and all is well. But until that, to be able to develop an argument, we need to define terms to agree on what we're debating and discussing in the first place, because we see misunderstandings and people use these misunderstandings as loopholes to
but this
like
is
in politics all the time.
I agree with you. This is kind of also one of the reasons why I'm saying this, because we need to define terms, yes, but to put people in some kind of like box of like ascribing to this or that, I don't feel it's accurate. Because, for example, I have a lot of conversations with people who are pro-life, and then actually when you talk to them, they're not really pro-life. They just don't think that they have different like levels. So they think that contraception should be more used, but if it doesn't work, then it's okay. And it's always, there will always be a situation. I mean, in my experience, there's always a situation when, okay, but in that case, it's okay. Okay, if it's rape, it's okay. Okay, if this is, and it's like, but then you're not really like pro-life. Like you're like, you have a different level.
And I think also to recognize where these divisions are coming from, because in this example of pro-life, pro-choice, and not to make it super controversial, but in Malta, the division of labor and nationalists, it's made by the power structures that want to keep it the way that
doesn't
it is.
serve
you know?
us.
It doesn't serve the
serve
people.
us.
It doesn't even serve me being pro-choice to be part of the pro-choice group, you know?
Yeah.
It serves us to have the conversation and to actually think about, okay, what does it mean? Why do we have certain opinions and where do they come from? But the division itself is never really productive.
Yes. Helpful for the conversation, because if I'm starting the conversation already knowing you're coming with another stance, then I'll be defensive and possibly, and all of these things, it wouldn't help.
So there is one thing that both of you have said, that you like to connect the personal to the political through your work. So how do you do that? And also I do want to touch upon a bit how you use art as a tool for activism. But yes, what do you mean by this? To connect the personal to the political, what does it mean to you? Whoever goes first is gonna get the upper hand.
I mean, for me, a lot of my activism, and this is why I kind of float between like the community and the individual aspect of it. A lot of my activism is actually rooted in my own experiences, and I was kind of pushed into it because I realized, like, okay, something I experienced is actually really bad, and I'm not the only person experiencing it. That was always like the factor that pushed me to speak up about it. If it's just me, whatever, it's my problem, you know? If it's me and 500 other people, that's when I'll make a big deal out of something. So initially, when I wrote about my experience in Mount Carmel, that was not exactly about me spending 8 days in Mount Carmel. Yes, it was horrible. It was really bad. I maybe would have sent a complaint to someone or something. But I realized that there are people who are there for life, living in Mount Carmel in the conditions that I could barely stomach for 8 days. And that was something that was just so unreal and unacceptable to me that I was like, fine, I'll in a way, like, risk myself to all the backlash and the stigma that will come with being publicly out there with my name, being like, I've been to Mount Carmel. But also knowing that it will break a certain stigma, also because of the person that I am, you know? Like, I am a young girl who can write a sensible, coherent argument that people will inevitably, whether it's right or not, relate to more. They'll actually, you know, feel more empathy for someone like that. And then the reason I kept going, I kept doing these things and speaking up about these things, is because I realized it was like that with many cases, that I wasn't alone in my suffering, and that also therefore I wouldn't be alone in my speaking out. And the same with something you mentioned, I think, before, the people reaching out to me about abortion. The first time after that interview, I got hundreds of messages on Facebook from women being like, thank you for speaking out, whether or not they mentioned they had an abortion. Safe to assume that many of them have had an abortion and they could never even speak to their sister or best friend or mom about it, you know? And I think that's kind of what, I already forgot the question. That's what keeps me going, like to know that my personal experiences connect with so many people that it needs to change on like a systemic level. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is the main reason to kind of keep pushing for change.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was the awareness of going on in my everyday life and then being faced with, you know, certain closed doors and asking why. And is it because I'm a woman? Is it because I have this opinion, this position politically? Is it because so I started getting this awareness that I wanted to communicate, and I was made aware of how being in certain spaces, I am being perceived as political. So then that got me thinking, might as well own it. Like if you're attaching all this baggage on me being in a certain discussion or situation, then I'm gonna claim my space, and I'm gonna claim that space by acknowledging that yes, this is political, and then that led me to doing some practice-based projects which were related to my political campaign, to understanding the body and the inheritance of what, for example, about grandmas and the way my grandma was her life the way she was, and how I'm doing things for the first time because she didn't even acknowledge that she could be doing them because the way she had to live her life. And I found that very political, the fact that you invited me here and I am able to talk about these things with such confidence. Of course, that's political. I wish that all women in the world have this confidence to speak about their day-to-day experience, because yes, your experience is valid and it matters, and I need to hear it from you, because unless I hear your struggle, then how can we empower you and advocate for what you need in your day-to-day life? And this is how art makes it a bit easier for me to get over that censorship, because when there is that fictional element, then of course it's autobiographical, I'm doing it, but then that fictional element puts you in a safe space to speak about important things that otherwise you couldn't speak about. So for me, art is not only yes, it is an expression, but also paving the way for my future self and other people to be able to feel comfortable navigating life without other people pushing their understandings, their ideology, their thoughts onto them, but claiming space for themselves and saying what they need to say because it is important, no matter what people say or what family members say, or what maybe if you feel that you're surrounded with people who are not understanding the extent of the importance of what you need to say, then
You need to find a better group.
or carve that space to yourself, because sometimes it's not about convincing. You're not an academy, but you need to do it for yourself, to feel at peace with yourself, because trauma builds, it resurfaces in the body, and you need to let it out in a way or another.
I just want to say that those people exist. Like, you might feel like you're really alone, but actually there's only a certain variety of human experiences. So you're always going to find someone who has had a similar enough experience that can understand and relate to you better. So like, really, let's find sisterhood, and let's find like people who are able to support us, because maybe, you know, we want to support from a family member, we want to support from a partner, and that's not coming. But there are ladies, there are so many ladies who are like willing to support you.
That's exactly what the show teaches me. Actually, I recently filmed a video where I said that exact thing. It's like, when I went through my own health struggles, they make you feel very alienated. They make you feel very alone. But the second you speak up about them, you realize that there are so many women who have gone through those same experiences. And that is why I love hosting this podcast so much, because with the courage for us to have these conversations, we are almost like passing on that same courage to the people who have been experiencing it completely by themselves.
What you said in the beginning, that you make music you wish there had been when you were a teenager and it just wasn't there, you know? I relate to this a lot. Like, I talk about things where I'm like, when I left Mount Carmel, I was craving someone who spoke out about having a psychotic episode and what is that like. There's no one. I was like, oh my God, like, someone needs to do this, you know? And I think that's a lot of what we've been saying. Like, if I mean, someone's got to do it, so it might as well be us.
So I feel that there's so much more to be said, but we are like nearing the closing. And I feel that it is also coming to a natural close. So I always like to ask for your words of wisdom at the end of a show. And that would be maybe your piece of advice to any young woman out there, your piece of advice to society within itself, what's giving you hope right now, like whatever you want to do with this last part, it is completely up to you. But if you had to speak directly to a young woman or to anyone who is watching this show, what would your message be at this point?
I would say, like, be comfortable being difficult. Yeah, because it's worth it. And unless you speak out in the uncomfortable moments, you're not going to get what you deserve. You're not going to get what you want. Like, what you want is out there. You just have to have like the confidence to ask for it. So yeah, I would say, like, be comfortable with being difficult.
I love this.
It's a bit related, I think. But I think a lot of what we've been talking about is very much centered around daring to have hope, which I feel is something that is not necessarily encouraged, like to have hope for a better future, because then you might start building one and that doesn't benefit everyone involved. But to kind of attract that, like hope doesn't land in your lap all of a sudden. Like it doesn't just get there. Like I've been through depression. I know it's not easy to tell people like, oh, just have hope, like it will get better. So I think similar to what you said, like you have to get out there. Like it is difficult. Like you get the backlash. There is the controversy. There are things that are not fun at all about being an activist. But I think from this conversation, it's quite evident that what you get back from that, from having people be inspired, from having people feel connected, from creating communities, from actually driving change, which is something we've barely even touched upon because of the other positive aspects of it, it's really worth it, And that kind of invites hope into your life to then see that there are other people who actually care, but they're just afraid to speak up, or they can't speak up, or they do it in different ways than you imagine them to. So to kind of find your own power, your own voice, it will always invite back more hope and more connection in a very good way.
Yes. And to add on that, take your time to find out what you like. Because I spent so many years thinking that what's important for me is mine, and it wasn't. It was shoved down my throat, and me believing that I actually like certain things that I was doing. And maybe it was an okay time, but it was not my personal preference of what I desired and how I wish to spend my time to do what I was doing. So spend time to get to know yourself. For me, that's one of the most important things, because it's not nice to wake up one day and knowing that what you've been doing was someone else's mission, or not really enjoying your time doing it. Like life is there to be enjoyed, so might as well enjoy it in the meantime, and find what gives you this spark. Like I've seen it in all of you when you were speaking on your projects, like you were glowing. Like find what makes you glow and go with it.
That's beautiful. I think there is a lot of wisdom here to be taken from this. So I would really like to thank you all for joining me for this conversation. And not just for being here, but for everything that you've done. Like you are all women that at some point I have looked up to. And by the way, if you write young female activists in Malta on ChatGPT, you come up. So, so to our viewers, like if you're watching this and you're feeling frustrated about what's happening, you're feeling fired up, like reach into that courage and remember that your voice matters. And yeah, this is the She Word, and this is how young women can change the world.
Thank you, Sasha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh.